Hey everybody, so this is the first out of maybe 2 or 3 videos where I'm going to go over setting up your mesh to be imported into Substance Painter. So this one video is just going to go over UV unwrapping pretty quickly. Next we'll go over importing into Substance Painter, and then material creation, texturing in Substance Painter. Okay. So, like I said in class, the first step before actually texturing, you need to UV unwrap your mesh. And like I said in class, UV unwrapping is basically transitioning your 3D asset onto a 2D surface. This is the 2D representation of our 3D asset cut in certain areas so that it lays flat on this 2D grid called the UDIM square. And this is the 0 to 1 UDIM square. If I highlight select every shell, they all exist in this one square. If you see this, that's bad and you will get texture deformation. So you have to scale them all just in so they fit inside this square. Okay, so to get to the UV unwrapping, first, when you are done actually modeling, your topology looks good, you have all these supporting edge loops for everything. This is all one mode, this is 3 mode, topology looks good and clean, we can start UV unwrapping. So I'm going to go to UVs, and there are 2 real methods to UV unwrapping right now. One is doing manual mode, which means selecting your own edges and cutting and unfolding that way, or using the automatic unwrap. You can get away with automatic unwrap for, a good amount of models you create, but that kind of leaves a lot of room for a bit more error in the mesh. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show both of those methods. So to do the UV unwrapping first, we need to go to this camera projection view. This is how we start. Double click this, first make sure you have your object selected, and go into the UV menu here. So you have the UV editor here and your UV toolkit on the right. I'm going to go to UV and just delete UVs real quick. So I'm just going to start from scratch. So I'm going to select my model, one of my pieces, and I'm going to double select the camera based projection, maybe angle it right here, doesn't matter, hit apply and close. Okay, so now we're starting somewhere. And let me just hit hide all unselected. Whoops, so I'm just focusing on this engine piece. And okay, so you can see this is our 3D model here. Now I can literally, if I want to do the automatic unwrapping, go to this cube here and hit that. And there we go. It breaks everything up into individual shells. I could hold right click, select UV shell, hold left click, select all of these, hit unfold here, and then hit layout, and just scale those in. Okay, and what laying out does specifically is that it lays out all those shells so they're not touching each other, and it's optimizing as much space inside of this grid as possible, and that's what we like, so we can get a higher resolution texture. Unfold will actually unfold the shells at the seams, but we did the automatic, so it's kind of already unfolded pretty much when we do the automatic. But I can see a problem here is that I get a lot of shells. I get a lot of unwanted shells here. Some of this is okay, but I don't really want all these shells because then I'm going to get a lot of seams in my texture, and the repetition is going to be pretty obvious. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete these, okay, and I'm going to go into UV and hit delete UVs and do it manually right now. So I'm going to do the same thing, camera-based projection, hit apply and close, and I'm going to go into my edge mode, And if you're wondering how I got these colors and these checkerboard, this option in the middle is to get the color. We like blue, we don't like red. And the checkerboard is to make sure that the actual squares of the checkerboard are all uniform throughout. It's pretty much a test to see how your textures apply. Okay. Okay. So, I'm going to go into my one mode because it's a lot better to, you want to model in your one mode, but you don't want to, you want to model in UV Unwrap in one mode, and then see how the outcome looks in the three mode. So I'm just going to turn off the color because it's kind of hard to see, and I'm going to turn off the checkerboard because it's also kind of hard to see. So I'm thinking about this. I want to just unwrap this cylinder pretty much, kind of like a present. So imagine I'm like just having I have a scissor and I'm just cutting it right down the middle, and these flaps kind of unfold, right? That's pretty much what I want to do. So I'm going to select this edge, hold shift, this edge, this edge, this edge, and I want to cut around this edge, just like I'm, cutting open a present, and then select all the edges around, select this edge, and then double select this edge. I'm double selecting this edge because right after this is where we get the changes in geometry. And I'm going to also double select this edge as well. So this is going to be its own fate, its own shell. This whole body piece is going to be its own shell, and so is this. I want to do also the same thing to the bottom, where I just double select, hold shift, double select this opening here. And then also I want to cut on the inside because it's kind of acting just like a cylinder as well. And cutting your seams is changes for all models. You want to try to hide your seams as much as you can and cut in places where you think, we won't be able to see pretty much. But I don't need to cut along this edge because cutting this will unwrap it fine along this edge. Okay. And what I want to do when I have all of my edges selected, I want to go to this tool right here, separate UVs and create borders along the selected components. Select this. You see how that now really highlights those edges. I want to right click, go to UV shell, highlight select all the UV shells, and now hit unfold because I created the seams, cut the seams, but now I need to unfold them. Unfold. Great. Now I have, if I go to my checkerboard here and my color, now I can see all the individual shells. Here, here, this entire inside, and these two caps. Here and here. Perfect. And what I want to do now is, after I have unfolded them, I want to lay them out so they take up as much space in this square as possible. So I'm going to highlight select all the shells. We'll make sure, right click, hold shells, highlight select them, and then hit layout. Okay, and that automatically just kind of lays it out. There wasn't much of a difference, but this shell is kind of bothering me because I don't really want to work on like a slanted shell in Substance Painter. So what I can do is I'm going to select this shell and go to Arrange and Layout in the UV Toolkit and go to Orient Shells. And it automatically kind of orients it properly, right? I'm going to select all of them and then hit Layout again and hit R for the scale and just scale that in so it fits inside this. Cool. Go to Object Mode, hit 3, and it's looking pretty good. If you find if you find edges where you see some deformations where the checkerboard is kind of like sludging in on itself, what you want to do is go to Object Mode and go to your attribute editor of that model. Go to where you have, engine shape, or maybe it's poly cylinder cube shape or poly, or not poly cylinder cube, poly cube shape. In your attribute editor, where you have these options, you want to go to smooth mesh, and under open subdiv controls, open that up. Under UV boundary smoothing, make sure you have preserve edges and corners on, and maybe smooth triangles and propagate UV corners on. This is what it looks like at default. You can see how it messes up those edges there. Change that to preserve edges and corners. Okay, and that's pretty much that for UV Unwrapping 1 example. After that, go back to Gen. If this is a separate element, part of your whole entire model, make sure you right-click, add new material, Arnold shader, AI standard surface, and rename the AI standard surface to whatever the part is called. So you are applying the textures specifically just to this part. Hit enter. Okay. Great. Show last selected. Great. If you want multiple textures or multiple objects to be textured the same or on the same texture set, you can select multiple objects and give them new material, the same material. So if I have all these 3 selected and I give this AI standard surface, I rename it to blocks. Now all of these are going to show up on the same texture set in Substance Painter. And if I go to UVs, they all exist. All 3 of these components, you see one here, one here, one here. If I select all of them and they have the same material property, they all exist on the same UDIM square, the same texture set. Okay. The wheels also exist on the same texture set because I want to texture them pretty much the same. But what I want to do is see how they're not taking up as much space. I want to highlight, select all of them, and layout, and then scale that in just the slightest bit. Okay. Same thing for the dowels. I also want to have them on the same texture set. Oh. There we go. If I open up my group here, inner dowel, wheel dowel, okay. And these need to be laid out one more time as well. Right, and for these dowels, I just did the automatic unwrapping, didn't need to do much with those. Great. So for another example, you can see the chimney where I cut the seams here. Okay, if I go to 1 mode, just like a cylinder, I cut it down the middle. And I cut it right at the base, the base edge here, where right before and after that edge, there's changes in geometry, and then right at the top here. Okay, so it's this cap, and then the bottom cap. Okay. If I go back to general, and right before I export this to, what's it called? Substance Painter, I'm gonna highlight, select the entire mesh. I'm gonna hit 3, and I want to delete history, freeze transformations, center pivot, and there we go. As another example, I'm going to bring back the pawn here. And if I go to UVs, I can see exactly how the UV kind of comes out. Pretty good. What I did was, you guessed it, I cut around the bottom here. And I cut down the middle here. The same thing right at the top. And then you hit separate, highlight, select all the shells, unfold, and layout. And this is UV Unwrapping in a nutshell.